Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone is having a great day so far and you have had your morning coffees and ready for our today's sessions. My name is Sami Jääskeläinen from Nordic Innovation House and I'll be your host today. So it is my great pleasure to warmly welcome you all to our Nordic FinTech Insights webinar. Please note that all the participants are automatically muted and we are also recording this session, and then the recording and the presentations will be shared with the participants in 24 hours. We will have the breakout rooms then after the panel, which is a great avenue then to ask questions and engage with our panelists. Basically today we want to brush away all, or at least the most, the craziness of 2020 and focus really on the new learnings in 2021 in B2B digital banking with our 3 Nordic FinTech companies that all have offices here in Singapore. And if you look at our agenda today, it's fairly straightforward. First, we will have an exciting panel with Weir from EedenBull, Kanika Mittal from Meniga, and then Sebastian Zilliacus from ZignSec. And then after the panel, we will have the breakout rooms where you can hear more about their solutions, continue the conversations, and ask those tough questions. The breakout rooms are already open, but we will only start those after the panel, so don't go there yet. And all the participants can join the breakout rooms by themselves, so you can just hover over the room and then click join. And before we start the panel, very quickly, just a couple of words about the Nordic Innovation House for our new friends here with us today. So essentially, Nordic Innovation House is a community platform supporting high-quality Nordic tech startups, scale-ups, and growth companies that are coming to Singapore. And of course, many of them are using Singapore as a gateway then to the Southeast Asian markets. We are actually supported by Nordic Innovation, which is headquartered in Oslo, and a very unique Nordic collaboration. And in our Singapore team are Business Sweden, Innovation Norway, Business Iceland, and the Embassy of Finland. And our journey actually started from Silicon Valley, followed by New York, and then Singapore and Hong Kong were opened in 2018 and Tokyo last year. So currently we have 5 locations in these global vibrant ecosystems to support our companies. If you want to find out more what we do and how do we support companies, please check our website or drop us an email. Good. But now, without any further ado, let's then kick off our panel. And we wanted to do things a little bit differently today. So instead of me introducing the panelists, they will actually introduce each others. And with that, Kanika, over to you. Do you want to start?
Thanks, Sami. We're revolutionizing the way FinTech webinars are being done as well. Well, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my fellow panelist, Sebastian Zilliacus. He's the Vice President for Asia at ZignSec. But that's not the most interesting part. I asked him what he specifically likes about ZignSec the most, and he said it's the business model and solution as an aggregator of RegTech services, specifically identity verification solutions. So it allows them to support their customers with better coverage for expansion, and then they're able to identify customers globally. May I, Sebastian, with your permission, reveal a little tidbit about you? He loves Chinese and Korean dramas, for those of you who didn't know. And in fact, he's learning to speak Chinese right now.
Indeed.
I won't spill any more beans. Over to you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Matt Weir as a fellow panelist. He's, as you can see, the Chief Business Development Officer and Managing Director for EedenBull. And same as Kanika, I asked him a few questions, specifically also why he'd like to be here in Singapore, as well as what he thinks EedenBull can bring to the table in Asia. And while Matt probably normally would say that he'd love to be here in Singapore due to its brilliant positioning and make connections across industries, I do think it's more that he wants to escape UK from its weather. But then he has, with EedenBull, I think he has really found a right place and time to help their bank partners that they have today and future bank partners to really deliver innovative and forward-thinking payment and spend solutions, specifically what they are doing in the B2B and commercial payment solution design and implementation space. So happy to have you here.
Thanks, Sebastian. Good morning, everyone. Sami, thank you very much for having us all. And I'm privileged to introduce you all to Kanika Mittal. Kanika is the regional head for Meniga in Asia Pacific. Meniga was set up as a company in 2009 in Iceland, and with the aim of basically providing more control over finances to consumers. They provide white label solutions to companies across 30 different countries, so growing very fast. And if I can mention something about Kanika, apparently she used to love whitewater rafting, but these days it's more yoga apparently. So I totally sympathize. But anyway, lovely to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I guess Singapore is lacking those opportunities and big rivers for that. So yoga is a good substitute. Very good. Thanks for the introduction. So let's jump into our questions. And the first question is for everybody, but then we start with the Kanika. And looking back now, the crazy 2020, what was the biggest shift or change that you saw in the digital B2B banking and in your line of business?
Wow, it's a whole list really, but 2020 was quite the year. But I guess I will try and summarize that. So for us, we work directly with bank clients or financial institutions, and we're a B2B company. So to us, the impact was felt through the consumers and the customers of our bank clients. So firstly, most of our clients saw an increase in reliance on mobile and web channels, but mostly mobile channels. Also because it's more personalized and it allows for more personal use, something you don't have to share with others. Web may or may not be like that. Secondly, across markets, we experienced that there was an increase in transactions being initiated via mobile. And I'm talking both banking transactions as well as e-commerce transactions. And then I guess a very, very important one, and finally, to that extent, people across the globe have suffered great financial adversity last year. So we saw a huge rise as a result of that in consciousness around money management or financial planning. There has been a lot of demand for account aggregation. People want to have one view of what they have in terms of assets and what their liabilities are. I guess in a nutshell, I would say I'll stop there. But then each of these can then be, further, analyzed for specific impact thereon.
Yeah, very good, good, crucial 2 points. Thanks for that. How about Matt on your side? What were the biggest shifts that you saw?
Yeah, thanks, Sami. So some similarities actually to what Kanika was saying, but at EedenBull, we as well work with banks, and we work with banks that issue commercial products to businesses of all sizes. So it could be business cards, corporate cards, purchasing cards, virtual, etc. And they in turn issue those products, as I say, to businesses from SMEs all the way up to large corporates on a global basis. So the spending patterns across those products obviously go across all merchant verticals. So whether it's in the travel and entertainment space through to B2B supplies, MRO spending, etc. So I think in terms of impact, absolutely no surprise was the total falling off of travel expenditure and everything related with it. So I guess if you think about that from a customer perspective, so our first line of customer is the bank, the issuer, but in turn, the end user, of course, is the business. Definite massive effects on both. So for the issuing bank, a total drop off in volume when it comes to T&E expenditure. 85%, 90, 95%. And I guess if you look at the issuing portfolio of products, for some issuers, that could mean 60, 70% of their portfolio, because most of the spend is in the T&E space. Enormous impact on the banks, on the issuers. Of course, then an enormous impact on the end user, on the business that we all know about. So a real requirement, therefore, and I guess this is the second impact, the second shift, to really pivot very, very quickly to think about how can we assist in terms of driving more B2B expenditure while travel is gone. So I guess back to Kanika's point there, a definite drive to e-commerce, a desperate need for businesses, not just as buyers, but as suppliers, to think about how to sell their goods online. So again, I know this is pretty obvious, but it's a massive shift. Ironically, although it's been a dreadful year for everyone globally, I think it's a bit of, necessity is the mother of invention. It's kind of forced individuals and businesses to think about what next. And it's kind of supercharged the whole sort of digital movement, if you like, when it comes to payments and data. So they're the big shifts for me.
Exactly. And silver linings, right? And you
yeah,
forced to rethink a lot of things. Very good. Sebastian, how about on your side?
Yeah, so on our side, I mean, ZignSec is a regulatory technology company. We build solutions to help regulated companies such as banks, but not only banks, as well as non-regulated businesses to comply with regulations globally, but within Singapore, of course, is MAS, but also to manage their companies that is not regulated, to support them in fraud detection, for example. So within our space, and as well as within the banking space, to not repeat what Matt and Kanika have said, I think one of the biggest parts that we have seen has happened in 2020 is really the digitalization in general. That there has been a lot of processes that has been in the physical world, and with the regulators in the space, they have also taken a stand to look at their regulatory framework to support new digital initiatives, which really helps the companies. Because and I will explain a little bit more during my breakout room later on a use case specifically that has happened. But generally across the B2B banking space in 2020, which has been to me a big shift, as well as quite a good insight, and that is and Southeast Asia, and that is that more and more countries is giving out digital banking licenses, which definitely will spur new innovative solutions in the market, which end result will benefit the end customer.
Exactly. Very good. All right. Then let's move forward and let's look at this year, 2021. So after that all craziness from last year, and of course there are still some spillovers for 2021, but what do you see that are the biggest upcoming learnings or shifts or innovations in digital banking, B2B banking this year? And maybe Sebastian, we continue with you. So if you want
Sure. I can continue on that side, specifically on the digital banking licenses. So that, of course, in the market can cause a little bit of confusion. What is an incumbent bank? What is a digital bank? How would they move forward individually? And also, to a large extent, there will be competitors to the incumbent banks. But I also think with that what we will be able to see in 2021, but also moving forward, is that the incumbent banks will start to look at opportunities to open up a little bit more through open banking concepts or open banking APIs, which then allows additional companies to connect into their infrastructure that they have today. and that can form a new revenue stream to banks. And in that sense, we become a little bit more innovative, a little bit more digitalized. However, that is, and with that concept, I think it's quite interesting to see that, yes, you have the incumbent banks trying to digitalize, being more open, and then you have digital banks that are opening who normally are not from the banking space, but they will definitely have some challenges on their own side. So for example, many of the digital banks, as I mentioned, does not come from the banking sector, which means there will be a learning curve for them, specifically because their solutions or their background hasn't focused on the compliance side, which banks traditionally need to focus on, credit rating of the bank and so forth. While the digital banks come from a more user-focused, user-friendly background, which maybe give them an advantage when it comes to user acquisition, user retention, but they will have more challenging in the back. So I see those are the two sides, and both of them will have its own challenges to move forward. But working together, I think we will see a great future. Yeah.
Of course, you see this is a great opportunity having those great KYC products. And let's come back to the user friendliness later on. But let's hear first from Matt and Kanika. Maybe Matt, if you want to go next about 2020 and the biggest upcoming learnings and innovations, what do you see?
Yeah, thanks, Sami. I think we've all hinted at it. I think it's because of what's happened. I think it's speeded up the need to move digital in everything we're doing. And so whether that's data that we receive and look at, whether that's the way we do things and the way we transact, it's definitely speeded everything up. I think speed is a key word, and certainly, I guess Sebastian was talking about sort of traditional banks versus digital banks. We work with traditional banks, all around the world, and they have great customer bases, enormous customer bases, but they need to move swiftly so that they can retain this customer base and deliver more innovation and value to the base. So I think there's a growing demand, I guess, from businesses for data, for more easily accessible data as well, and that's key. I guess if we look at ourselves as consumers, open banking is being driven in different markets around the world. We all have more choice and access to things. Why can't businesses? And I guess especially SME type businesses as well, because often they're neglected. So I think there's a massive drive to this because, of course, SMEs form the backbone of most economies around the world as well. So in order for them to survive and grow, I think there's a much stronger demand now to deliver data in a more user-friendly way, if you like. So, within EedenBull, we have developers and designers working around the clock with our bank partners to improve that design and delivery of data to the customer. So I think we're all going to see that more and more and more. And businesses will make choices based on that in terms of who's delivering the information. So speed is key, and it's all about innovation and access. For the banks, it's traditionally quite difficult to do that themselves because it takes too long. The commercial product areas within the banks often don't get the budget that the consumer area within the bank will get. So there's all sorts of challenges for bankers in this space, even though they may want to move there. That's where I guess companies like ourselves here today and other fintechs hopefully can partner and help out. So yeah, I think they're the big changes that we're seeing.
Yeah. So
if I may jump in very quickly, I think what you touched upon there, Matt, is really exciting, and I think both EedenBull and Meniga is really focusing on that, and that is the data itself and the accessibility of data. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of discussions and has been discussions about big data, that is very important to collect data. And while that is true, you really need to make sure that your big data can become smart data. and something that is usable for the business. And I think that is the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what I was about to say is that, like, why you try to build everything in-house, because you have companies who've been building these different solutions for years or decades, right? And they have mastered it, and it's working well. Great. Kanika, how about you? 2021?
Well, between Sebastian and Matt, I think they've covered a lot of ground, like data, digital banking, open banking. These are all the things which are directly relevant for us. And then definitely Matt also alluded to, the speed and the relevance to SMEs, and we completely concur at Meniga about that. But I do want to shift gears here, because the rest of it has been covered, to talk about this very interesting trend that we experienced, and call it silver lining if you want. But this was the rising consciousness on climate change, and I will get to how it's related to fintech in just a second. Now, whether this consciousness of this rise as a movement is coming from the actual threat of climate change, which has been there for a long time now, but more so now because people were home and able to reflect on the impact. Or perhaps it's the pandemic, which has caused people to be more concerned and not less about addressing an actual environmental challenge, something they have control over and something that they can prevent. Perhaps it's coming from that. But we did see a tremendous shift in carbon conscious consumer behavior. And it has moved from being a fringe to definitely a mainstream movement, especially in the Nordics countries, and that's where Meniga is from. But one would think that Nordics has always been a leader in sustainability, but you would be very surprised to learn that even in Asia-Pac markets, there has been a rise of wanting to adapt to that trend. And I can share with you some specific statistics, but I don't want to take up too much time. We actually have studies to prove that consumers are now, as of 2020, willing to pay 66% more for sustainable brands than they ever were before. And then another one, just to really drill home my point, is that consumers are 60%. There has been a 60% rise, which is a substantial increase in consumers who are making more eco-friendly, sustainable, and ethical purchases. And this has all been measured during the last year at the start of the pandemic through the end of it in December. So yeah, that's something we have observed, just a little bit more to what Sebastian and Matt talked about.
Very good, very good. And thanks for sharing those pretty impressive data results. Let's shift the gears a little bit. As you are all representing Nordic FinTech solutions here in Singapore and Southeast Asia. So I would like to ask that, do you see that, or are there any advantages of being a Nordic player in Southeast Asian or global FinTech scene, as everything is global, I guess, these days? If yes, what are those? And it would be good to hear kind of like if you have some concrete examples. And maybe Matt, if you could start with you.
Sure, thanks, Sami. I think the answer is definitely yes, from our perspective. From a payments perspective and innovation, of course, the Nordics are seen as world leaders and actually have been for years. I mean, if you think about, people talk about, contactless and the drive down of cash usage. In many ways that started in the Nordics and it's increased. And of course, from a payments technology perspective, I think it's continued to lead the way in terms of mobile wallets and digital payments and innovation. So I think when we're talking about payments and kind of what we do to banks around the world, that definitely helps. I guess the other thing that's given us an enormous springboard for EedenBull is the fact that we're live with over 65 banks across the Nordics today. So they use our services, whether that be us issuing product directly or a white label through the bank, providing our spend management solution, Q Business. so I think in that way, that's an enormous help. So we've got live customers, of course. So when you open up in new regions, that really helps. I think the other thing from our perspective is we're very focused on the customer journey and the end user experience, because again, traditionally, businesses have been neglected in that way in terms of, again, the data they're receiving, whether it's spend management tools. It's really been quite poor over the years. So I think because of access to data and technology, we're able to really improve that. So again, that's a massive focus for us. So those banks in the Nordics are already using those tools that we've provided. So of course, we're able to talk about that across regions. I think the other thing that's really helped, and maybe this is a wider European comment, we're not, I guess, just a fintech that's built something and we're selling something. Within EedenBull, we have a lot of payments experience from the banks and the schemes ourselves. So what we've done is a lot of work around being aware of the regulatory environment Sebastian mentioned earlier. So we are a licensed e-money institution in Europe. We're very much ready for open banking as that develops around the world. So opportunities that provides through PSD2 in Europe, for instance, and other areas. And we're also a principal license member to issue for Visa, Master and UnionPay. So I think as a springboard, again, coming from the Nordics, certainly that's a massive help for us in other regions.
Good. How about you Kanika, at the Meniga side?
Well, obviously, I have a lot of appreciation for the Nordics origin, only because I think from a culture perspective, they make innovation look easy, much to what Matt was saying earlier. But they make it also very user-friendly. The UI, UX, it's very, very simple, easy to understand, easy to consume, yet very functional. And I think that is a direct result of the Nordics culture. The solutions are created with a lot of consumer focus, and again, I keep saying that again and again, but this is such a trend. Also, with the emphasis on sustainability, and I find that commendable. I guess I will stop there because I want to showcase our carbon consciousness, merge with technology later on in the breakout room. So perhaps over to you, Sebastian.
I think, for us, being a regulatory technology player from the Nordics, we have definitely seen advantage being a Nordic company and coming from the region, specifically due to that the Nordic region has, to a certain extent, already digitized and digitalized many of their business processes already. And that has given us some learnings that can be adopted in Singapore and Southeast Asia. Specifically, or additionally, we have had a privilege to have a regulatory framework that has welcomed new technologies, which has spurred innovation in the Nordics. Another benefit, I would say, or reason why this could have happened in the Nordic countries could even be a geographical reasons. And when I talk about that, means that we are quite large companies in countries in form of area, but very few population. And with that, we are sort of dispersed geographically, split, and through that, some digitization and digitalization has been needed compared to maybe Singapore, which is very dense. And through that, we have sort of has helped us quite a lot, and that is definitely an advantage coming in. But I do see great innovation happening here in Asia and Singapore due to the diversity that exists here. So that's why one of the reasons why we want to be here as well from an innovation point of view.
Good. We are running shortly out of time, but I still want to have one very quick question and snappy answers, please. So still talking about the Nordic and how you've been positioning yourself here in Southeast Asia. do you feel there has been a big need for adaptations, or like does the Nordic solution, what's been built back home there, is that like a straight fit to your clientele here? Maybe Sebastian, you can quickly comment on that.
Sure. So we are, or ZignSec is positioning ourselves as an aggregator of regulatory technology services, which has definitely helped us also from a growth perspective. And we focusing on aggregating identity verification solutions. So that is know your customer and know your business. And with that, we definitely have seen that it has helped us in the market. However, it definitely requires adaptation from a language point of view, but during identification, you also have to have artificial intelligence and machine learning model, which has been trained for specific nuances to capture the markets. And we are doing two different ways to do that. First of all, through organic growth in the company, but also through acquisitions.
Okay, good. Thanks, Sebastian. Kanika, quickly, your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think since the focus for us has always been consumers, and we have always worked backwards from there, it is definitely a strength of ours, which is easy for us to leverage. But we definitely have had to adapt not just to the region, but also to the specific requirements across the region. As Sebastian mentioned, there's a lot of diversity here, right? So very quickly, like our recent most launch, IDFC First Bank in India, their strategy is completely different. They are looking to provide a safe, secure, one-stop shop, you know, a financial advisor to their customers, versus a UOB, you know, as a leading bank in the region, launching as a challenger bank in Thailand. And there they are targeting millennials and younger population. They launched with a gamified mobile app, you know, so the strategy for them for that market was very effective in differentiation, brand positioning. And as, you know, as their partners, innovation partners, Meniga has been able to deliver on all of these counts, and that comes from our focus on you know, the consumer and you know, the simplicity with which we want to provide functionality.
Exactly, and then those principles are I think it's easier to adapt here.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Matt, very quickly from your side.
Yep. Just a real couple of quick ones. So I guess for us, the good thing is we run an independently built cloud-based platform. So in that way, we're global. So we can integrate swiftly, efficiently into bank partners and other partners through APIs. So that's really useful. And then we basically sell commercial payments as a service, CPaaS, to our bank partners. What that means is we can cover the end-to-end of the commercial payment value chain, from advisory services, spend management tools at the front end, managed services in the middle, to processing at the back. The key there is it's modular. So we're able to offer, if you like, a menu of services to the bank partner. So in that way, it means we can position ourselves to banks, issuers of all sizes, and I guess more importantly, to their customers for businesses from SMEs all the way up to large corporates. So we think we're in a pretty good place to sell that globally. Good.
So adaptability and modularity.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for all the panelists. Now it's time to then jump to the breakout rooms, and then our panelists Matt, Kanika, and Sebastian will tell more about the solutions, and of course that's a great avenue then to engage and have a deeper conversation. So all the participants, you should be able to now see the breakout room panel, and then you can basically select the room where you want to go from there. And if you're not able to do that, let me know, raise your hand or say it. Unmute yourself and say it, then I can manually assign you the different rooms. But you just hover your mouse over the different breakout rooms, and then you select from the join. So with that, then over to you, Sebastian, Kanika, and Martin. Enjoy the breakout rooms.
Thanks, Sami.
Thank you. Thank you.